In the summer of 1938, a young boy then aged 11 and his cousins went fishing. Unbeknownst then to the young boy, it would now turn out to be his earliest childhood memory. Bertie, as he is known to most friends and relatives, was born in October 1927 in Kenyer, Texas. He attended a school located in one of his churches in the little community he was born in. A favorite part of his school day was seeing other kids his age. He enjoyed having recess and playing out in the schoolyard with them. Most holidays and birthdays, especially Christmas, were celebrated together with his family. Bertie to most, but Mr. Bird to my family and I, was a neighbor when we lived in Connecticut. This was where my family and I first met Mr. Bird. When I was 10 years old, my family and I moved to Tennessee. But my family has stayed friendly with him. I recently was able to talk with Mr. Bird over telephone. Our conversation was very interesting. It was one I will not forget. We talked about his childhood, his school years, his young adult and adult years, and his retirement years. There were several times during our conversation that Mr. Bird spoke of family and the importance of it to him. However, what I learned was that Mr. Bird was never married and never had children. Therefore, at the age of 92, he has been facing aging without a family to spend time with or support him. After thinking about our conversation, it became clear that the subject of this assignment would be aging without a family or support system. What I discovered was many elders, even those with family, are facing aging alone. However, although not having a family was one of Mr. Bird's biggest regrets, he has lived a full life because of his outlook on life. According to the American Geriatric Society, nearly 1/4 of Americans over age 65 are or may become physically or socially isolated with the lack of someone, like a family member, to care for them. As we age, our health declines. Aging without a support system affects us both physically and mentally. In an article titled "No Spouse, No Kids, No Caregiver, How to Prepare to Age Alone," it suggests that the aging process alone does not mean there are not ways to prepare for it. It suggests speaking with doctors about your care plan, making friends, moving if need be to an elderly populated community, and staying active. Mr. Bird is a textbook example of this. Even while aging without a family, he has managed to make the best of his life. Perhaps this is the reason why he has lived as long as he has and aged well without a family-based support system. Something that stood out to me during our conversation is that although Mr. Bird is 92 years old, he has a memory that appears so clear. He recalled learning to drive and explaining the whole story to me. We laughed because when his dad finally allowed him to drive the family car, which was a stick shift, he was able to do it without a problem. This was only because he practiced on his aunt and uncle's car in the driveway. His dad was surprised for sure. I learned that straight out of high school, he went into the Army. He went to basic training in Joplin, Missouri. He was stationed in France, Germany, and Italy. After 2 years of being in the Army, he lived in New York City. 7 years later, he moved to Connecticut. He attended college and later became a respiratory therapist. He worked at a hospital as a respiratory therapist for 30 years, which he thoroughly enjoyed. During our conversation, Mr. Bird shared that he was a snowbird. He referred to Snowbird as having a home in Connecticut that he resides during the summer and fall months, as well as a home in Florida, which is an over 55 community. He lives in Florida during the winter and spring. He discussed the importance of having his daily walk in the early morning and always sticking to a routine. He has friends who socialize with him in Florida with his community. He also has friends in his neighborhood in Connecticut. He disclosed that he does not fly. He makes the drive from Connecticut to Florida and Florida to Connecticut alone. He describes with me that travel route he takes, and even where he stops for the 2-day trip. He also shared that this year would be the last year he would make the trip and will need to decide on making either place a permanent residence. According to the National Council of Aging, staying active is important. They encourage the elderly to stay active and maintain gains, strength, balance, and flexibility that reduce the fall risk. Staying active strengthens the immune system and improves the quality of life. Mr. Bird describes his love for the outdoors, especially during the summer and fall months in Connecticut, as a way he stays active. He enjoys tending to plants in the garden. He likes to see them growing and blooming. He enjoys looking at the leaves in the fall as he takes his morning walks. He remains active even at 92. In Florida, he walks within his community early in the morning before it gets too hot outside. On the flip side, Mr. Bird describes growing older does have its difficult times. He says you can either accept growing older or you don't. The difficult side is that there are many things that you just cannot do anymore. When referring to his home in Connecticut, like cutting the grass and clipping the hedges, it cannot be done in one day. It tires you out. I used to get up on the roof and rake and clean out the gutters, but now I am afraid of heights, so I don't go up on the ladder much. Many elders face a similar situation like Mr. Bird. In an article titled Pros and Cons of Aging in Place, it states that maintenance costs can add up. Even houses in good condition requires upkeep. Therefore, many elders usually need to hire people to maintain the things that they can no longer do. Mr. Bird did state that although he loves caring for his garden, that was one thing he did not have to worry about in Florida, as the grounds are kept by the community he lives in. In the 1-hour-long conversation I had with Mr. Bird, I found that he has so much insight on life. He has lived a good life. He has made an honest living. He embraces the American dream. He joined the military. He went to college, earned a degree, brought a home, and traveled. However, it was the final 2 questions that I asked him that was the most profound meaning, and these 2 will remain in the forefront of my mind for years to come. I asked Mr. Bird, if you had the power to solve one and only one problem in the world, what would it be and why? His response, I would like to say no more wars, and every country and place to be at peace, and we could live happy and just be happy together, everybody all over the world. I also asked, what advice would you give a young person just starting out in their career and family? His response, my advice would be always be truthful and always have compassion towards other people, that have someone you can always go to and talk with. To be kind to everybody and to understand when you're growing up that you live in a world where there are all kinds of people, and to learn to live your life with kindness. In closing, what I took away from Mr. Bird's wisdom goes deeper than the words he spoke. Aging is inevitable, alone or with support. It is also making good choices and your perspective. More importantly, his message of peace, truth, kindness, and diversity is something the world needs more of.